If you have a question that you would like to be directed to one of the people here on the panel, simply raise your hand and our folks will pick them up and deliver them to the sorting table, if you will. My name is Dempsey Warner. I'm going to be moderating this group this evening. I want to welcome all of you to the 2019 Montgomery County Candidates Forum. The forum's co-sponsors are the League of Women Voters of Montgomery County and the Montgomery County, Radford City, and Floyd branch of the NAACP. And if you will all please rise with me and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For your information, the forum is being videotaped by Montgomery County. County Media Specialist Joshua Rosenfeld will handle the post-production and host the forum on the county's local access TV channel, Channel 190. Also, the video will be put on the county's YouTube channel. The YouTube channel will be available from the League's website, which I'm sure you're writing this all down, LWVMCVA.org. Go for the League of Women Voters website, you'll find it. The video will also be shown multiple times on Blacksburg's local TV channel, WTOB Channel 2. We encourage you to submit questions. Our helpers will give you index cards to write down your question. If you don't have one, then they will collect them and the screeners will review them, mostly for duplication, and pass them on to me. Since these candidates are competing for 3 distinct positions, County Treasurer, School Board, and Board of Supervisors, some questions, probably most questions, will only pertain to 1 or 2 of the positions. Therefore, some candidates will be asked all of the questions. Some will be asked of only 2 or 4 of the people on the panel, and we will try to rotate the order in which the questions are asked among the candidates. This becomes a little more complicated when I'm dealing with 3 different offices. But we'll do the best we can, and as I told one of them, if I get confused, please remember which office you're running for. The forum guidelines have been distributed to you. In addition, candidates have been asked to respond to League voter guide questions and write a short biography. Copies of the voter guides are on a table in the lobby and are posted on the League's website. And I would remind all of you to please turn off all of your phones.
Hey, Mom.
I brought this here, as I told somebody, I've got to digress for just a second. That was my 100-year-old mother calling me from North Dakota. Seriously. And she does that every night about this time, and today I learned that there was a place on my settings called Settings and Do Not Disturb. So please, if you will, do what I didn't do. All right, I would like to first of all introduce the screeners and the timers. The screeners are on my left. First, David Travis on this end, Beth Obenchain on the other end, and Carol Linker in betwixt. Karen Jones is going to be delivering the questions that they have sorted through to me, and the timers, and these people are tough, so pay attention to them, are Susan Gurley and Bev Fleming. And I must tell you One more person that never gets recognized here is the person who has for at least a dozen years been responsible for organizing and coordinating the voter forums in Montgomery County, and that is Mary Hoska, sitting right here. Now, having said that, that's the last time I want to hear your applause until the end of the forum. Introducing the candidates now. On my far right, running for the office of Treasurer, Tay Taylor and Helen St. Clair. Running for the school board office, Susan Kass and Sofia Midkiff. Running for a board of supervisors, Sherri Blevins and Brian Lawson, and Robbie Jones and Darrell Sheppard. So these are our candidates. Sheppard. I'm sorry. Darrell Sheppard. It was spelled right, Mary. It was me that did it. All right, so we'll begin, and we'll start with a question for Treasurer's Office. What would you propose to do, if anything, to improve the operation of the Treasurer's Office? And I'll start with Tay.
First thing I would do is implement credit card machines in the lobby. I think maybe one time we might have had those and we don't have them anymore. I think it would be a nice customer service feature for people coming in. They would get in and out quicker.
Helen?
We have a computer set up that people can do their credit card payments through a third party. And one of the reasons that we stopped doing the credit cards is because the bank would no longer absorb the fees. And although some people still use cards, I think for the most part they don't as much now that they have to pay the fees. But we do have a third party vendor that does can do the credit card payments online. They can be done in the office at the kiosk there at the computer, and they can do them by phone.
Thank you. Another question for the treasurer candidates, and I'll give this one to Helen first. Talk a little bit about your qualifications and your experience related to the job.
Okay. Well, I started in the office in 1984, so I've been there 35 years, and I've been chief deputy for 15 of those years. I've been involved in implementing many of the things that we do in the office as far as the delinquent collection department. I started that after I came to work in the treasurer's office, and I've been involved with the getting the scanning implemented so that we can do remote deposit and remote capture of checks and payments and speed up that processing. So there's many areas of the office I've worked in, like I said, including chief deputy for 15 years.
Okay. Mr. Taylor, your background experience that qualifies you for the office?
I've worked at small business most all my life, Taylor Office Supply. I also started my own business, New River Insurance, and I ran it for 15 years.
Okay. Question now for a Board of Supervisors candidates, and we'll start with Mr. Sheppard. How can the county balance the need for more funds for schools while minimizing or not increasing taxes? What needs to be done to, or how do we deal with balancing those two things?
Well, at current, I think as far as the Board of Supervisors go, we do a pretty good job of that. In the past 4 years since I've been here, their budgets went up 17%. Also, they've hired 40 new teachers, and they have the teachers up to a scale that's comparable with other localities. So I've always been of the belief of, try to work with what you have and not try to overspend. And we've done a good enough job doing that we've paid down the debt, that we're now in the process of renovating and updating the schools in Christiansburg, the elementary schools.
Okay. Ms. Jones?
Balancing the debt or the budget with the schools and the Board of Supervisors, it's a very delicate situation. If you've been to any budget hearings, it's give and take. The schools, the Board of Supervisors has increased in the last 4 years how much and how many people we've been able to hire. But that still does not cover the positions that we lost in 2010. We lost 90 positions and we're still 20 to 25 positions short. To balance the budget would be a very difficult thing to do, but we have the Montgomery County Board of Supervisors and the school board has seemed to do that historically in the last few years. But there are other options such as possible revenue sharing. So.
Brian, again, repeat the question. It's how do we balance the needs, the funding for schools versus the pressure on taxes?
Well, I know in my district alone, there's many schools, and I know currently the Board of Supervisors have taken steps to start improving the schools in the Christiansburg Strand, which needs to be done. $30 million for the smaller schools to get started while we plan for the high school, but it's still a lot of money. I think revenue sharing, like Ms. Jones said, is good. One of the things that concerns me, though, is the Blacksburg High School has already been open just for 4 years, and it's already at capacity. So what we got to do is that we've got to definitely work with the school board. We definitely got to see what the needs are, and we got to balance what our costs are and where we can make a difference on getting the money needed for the school board. And we need to address the teachers and their salaries.
Thank you. Sherri?
So the question is without raising taxes, correct? How do we generate revenue? Well, first of all, we have economic growth. We try to increase our revenue through economic growth. Also through grant writing, I would like the county to hire a full-time grant writer that could be worth their pay by doubling the grants that we could reach out to. We could also look at and optimistic about the talks with Virginia Tech and the Virginia Tech Foundation on the nonprofit part and the commercial sale. On the commercial retail end, we're not receiving that tax benefit or that tax revenue, and so I'm optimistic about the talks for that, so that would generate revenue for us as well. We need to be effective and accountable for our spending. There are needs. I'm glad to see that the Board of Supervisors have moved ahead with the renovation projects for our Christiansburg Elementary, primary schools in Bellevue. But Christiansburg High School will need additions and renovations as well. So we need to be cost effective, but I think you do that through economic growth and grant. We could do that with grant writing as well.
I have another question for the Board of Supervisors candidates, and I think I'm also going to toss this one to the school board candidates. The question is, the town of Christiansburg needs new schools. Is this in your budget for the next 4 years? Well, I think that everybody agrees that question has been answered, unless somebody wants to relate that. My understanding is that the plans are already underway to deal with the elementary schools, and that the high school is being set off 2 or 3 years to begin planning. Is that
Yes. Right?
Okay.
Three schools. Yes.
Do you have any additional thoughts on any of that?
A thought about what? The funding?
Well, about the importance of dealing with those Christiansburg schools.
Well, I'm representing District F, which is in Blacksburg, so I need to look out the best interest for Blacksburg. Blacksburg also have crowded schools. Harding Avenue needs extension, so we need to look into that as well. And also, I think Gilbert Lincoln doesn't take long before it's got overcapacity too. So from what I see, we need actually a comprehensive plan to look at all the buildings. Some of them need to be remodeled, some of them need to be rebuilt. And we need to look at how old they are and how overcapacited they are, and also the trajectories of the population increase. And with all that criteria, so we have a plan for all the buildings, Blacksburg, Christiansburg, anywhere else in the Montgomery County, and then look at the funding needed associated with those buildings and have a plan for next 10 years. And then we work with the school, with the Board of Supervisors to work on according to the plan, and not today we decide we want to throw some money here and tomorrow we want to repair that. To me, that's too ad hoc. I want a comprehensive plan. The reason for that is very simple. That's the most effective way to do things, to use the money.
Okay, this works. I wasn't sure if I had it on or not. I agree with Sofia in that we do need to do more long-range planning and not be in a situation where we were when the Blacksburg High School roof fell and we had to scramble to build another school and find money and put ourselves in serious debt. I don't agree in that, although I am the elected official, I would be the elected official for District F, I also am responsible for representing all of our students and all of our parents and all of our teachers. And so I think it's important that Christiansburg has schools that are safe, that are comfortable, that are good learning environments, as well as all of our schools in Blacksburg. I think it's great that we have a plan right now for Christiansburg and we are also doing a plan for Christiansburg High School, but we need to look at also other Blacksburg schools, Harding, Beeks, GLE, they all are getting to be older schools. And so we need to put a long-range plan of how we are going to fund that on a long-term basis and not find ourselves in the situation we were several years ago.
I want a rebuttal. I never said I'm only working for District F. I said I want a comprehensive plan for all the buildings within Montgomery County.
Okay.
Can I rebut
Oh,
too?
yeah, sure.
Just to add one thing, actually, we already put 2 cents of that 89 cents in savings for school capital projects. We wanted to put 2 more cents, and that's when the option to redo the Christiansburg schools came about, and we were able to borrow money to do that.
Any other additions? All right, another question for the school board, and we'll start with Susan this time. This deals with security, which, as everybody knows, is a major national problem. What kinds of initiatives would you propose for the county schools and how we could make them safer?
Well, obviously, as a former teacher, I think safety is very important. I've been in the classroom where I've had to do intruder drills, and that is not something that's enjoyable for either teacher or for students, especially young students. I think it's important that we have buildings that have, that there are ways to make sure that guests cannot just walk into a building, that they can't go into a building and be able to get through, even though by saying they're there for one reason and really not there for that reason at all. We have to have very strong security at our front offices of all of our schools. We have safety officers in all of our schools, and I think we need to continue that. I'm not against other types of security measures if we feel that it's important, but I think it's important that we make sure that our students feel like they're safe and our teachers feel like they're safe. And I don't think we can put that onus on teachers to making sure that they are the safety figures for our students. I think the administrators in our building, and I think the school board needs to be responsible for making sure that that happens.
Okay. Sofia.
One thing is there are still some of the buildings, like double doors are not built, etc. So we need to look at the equipment first. Our facilities need to up to date in terms of all the security measures. Second thing is constantly reminding parents to be vigilant. If they see anything suspicious, they should report to the school quickly. and also remind students sometimes if they see something not right, because parents and the teachers and the students are the people who are at school every day. So they are familiar with their surroundings. If they see something not familiar with them, they are the one who can tell. So I think we need to remind people about that. And of course, we need to work closely with the police officers for them to check on the schools from time to time.
Can I rebut?
Yes.
It's not really a rebut, but just remark. It is important, I think, for parents, and I do know of parents that have come to the schools and they will unfortunately take advantage of being able to get into the school and get into classrooms without really having the authority to be there. So it is very important that the schools have that safety.
Okay, thank you. For your information, we do have a procedure here where the limit in response to the question is 1 minute, and the other person or persons being asked a question have an opportunity to rebut. Well, in many cases, it's not simply rebut, but as the people in Congress say, extend and expand on the comments. So this is a question for everybody here. Why do you want to run? How did you decide to run? And I'm going to start with, let's see, how about with Sherri?
Well, I've been asked to run before for Board of Supervisors in 2013, but I wasn't in the right district. I've been asked to run for school board and for the town council for Christiansburg for several times. When I learned that, so I've been very active in politics because I love Christiansburg and I love Montgomery County. This is home. So when I learned that Christopher Tuck would not be seeking re-election, I stepped up and started talking to him about it, and he felt that I would be the leader that the county needed, an effective, proven results. And I love this area. My family lives here, we work here, we worship here. This is home, and I feel that I can make a positive impact on our community.
Okay, Brian?
Well, I've had a couple experiences with being a small business person. One with, we own a food truck, and I didn't really realize what the intricacies of small business and local government were until I had to get 9 business licenses in 9 different cities and different meals tax. But so I was really interested because of that. But the main reason is we have a family that comes into our restaurant, and they live out towards our to the interstate in Toronto. And the little girl that lives there, she's sharp as a tack, but they don't have internet. She can get the laptop from school. They give her assignments, but she can't use it at home. She can get the hotspot to use the telephone. They don't have cell service either. So I think in 2019, I think we can do better for our kids to provide broadband and provide internet for our future generation, because I don't want her to get left behind.
Robbie?
When I was little, my dad always told me that if you see something going on that you don't like, and if there's something you can do about it to change it, do it. I see our children in schools every day, and every year they present a budget of need. And it's not a budget of want, it's a budget of need. I see the struggle that teachers have every day. I see students that need individualized care, where people that are not in the school system think that they don't need it. I'm running for my grandchildren. My children are grown. I've got a 5-month-old granddaughter and one that's a sophomore in high school. And for the future of Montgomery County, this is the most important responsibility that we have as a county is our future, and that's our kids.
Darrell?
I've been in public service most of my life. I enjoy doing it. Obviously, or I wouldn't be here. And after being on the board for 4 years, we have gotten a lot accomplished, and a lot more than probably most people even realize. But there's a lot more I'd like to see done. There's a lot more things I'd like to have happen before I say I'm done. Also, in previous boards, I've watched things happen, or more to the point, maybe not happen, and I thought that they could be worked through, and there just wasn't enough interest or positive points put toward whatever this happened to be. And I felt like that I was good enough in talking with people. I'm not a very good public speaker, but talking with people individually, that I could get a lot of things done that in the past had not been done.
Okay. Sofia?
I have children in the school system, and two things I want to do. One is I do think the school board can be more transparent. Even though I'm pretty engaged with parents, I don't always know what the school board is doing, so I want to change that. The second thing is when I look at our budget and the funding issues, I'm worried. As far as I know, we are spending about 17% of our county budget now is serving the loans. And in the meantime, our building is getting old. We need to do something for the buildings, and our employee and teachers' pay is still not competitive. So with the expansion of both Christiansburg and Blacksburg, if we don't do anything, we will sooner or later get into trouble. And with my business background, I do want to do something in both those areas.
Susan?
You asked why I ran. The reason I run is because I feel like I have the experience. I think we need someone with true classroom experience on our school board. I was a teacher for 11 years in Blacksburg High School and Blacksburg Middle School. Not only was I a teacher, I was a parent, and I feel like I really have a good understanding of what the needs of our students and our teachers and our parents are. I think it's important that we have someone who has that, what I call kind of in the trenches experience, who really knows what it's like on a day-to-day basis to be out in the classroom. I decided to run when a lot of things started. I've thought about doing this after I left teaching a couple of years ago, but there's been a lot of things that have been happening, and I agree with Sofia, and the transparency is important. And we've had some issues in Blacksburg where I don't think the communication with our teachers, with our students, with our parents is strong enough. There needs to be more back and forth communication between those groups, and that's something I really look forward to being part of.
Helen?
I enjoy my job in the treasurer's office. After 35 years, each day when I wake up and come to work, I make that commitment to make it the best day for the office and for the people that come in our office and have interaction with us. And I enjoy the people I work with. They're like family to me. And I feel like that I still have a lot to offer with my knowledge and experience, and I want to continue working with the people in the office for the taxpayers of Montgomery County.
Jay?
So I grew up in Christiansburg. I've lived in Montgomery County my whole life. My family grew up here. Except for when I went away to college, I've lived here. My wife's a teacher here. Our daughter went to school here. I've served on the Economic Development Authority, and I think Montgomery County has a lot to offer. We have so much here that many counties don't have, and I would like to be a servant of our county, and that's why I'm running.
Thank you. I'm going to stay down at that end of the table, and Dave, start with you. As treasurer, what would you do to collect delinquent taxes?
Well, you have to go by the laws first, but there are companies that will help us with that. If we cannot get them in attorneys' offices, we might have to use certain attorneys to collect those taxes if we can't do it inside the office.
Okay. Helen?
Well, we're already using all of the methods that are available in the Virginia Tax Code 58.1. We send out delinquent notices. We file set-off debt to withhold Virginia income tax refunds. We issue third-party liens under Code 58.1-3952 that we can attach wages, we can attach bank accounts, tenant rent. We also do DMV stops. We issue levies, distress levies that the sheriff's office serves for us. And we also do some warning debts in court. And then since I have taken office, I have had some people summoned in to talk with them about their tax situation and what we can do to work out some type of payment plan to get them back taken care of. We also do real estate auctions. And then I've turned over some of the oldest personal property for collection, which is something that's never been done. So we're already working with a collection firm.
Thank you. And staying down at that end of the table, what is your position on prorating taxes?
From me first? Or?
Yes.
Okay. I think it was in 2015 when we were considering proration. I didn't really take a stand either way. I saw both sides of it, but I feel like the fairness is that you pay taxes on the vehicle for the time period that you own it. And the Board of Supervisors did decide to go with proration. It has worked really well for the county and for our offices. The first year, we had some things that we had to work through, like you do with any new method of collection or method of taxation that you would use. And we worked well with the Commissioner's Office getting those resolved. And everything is going well for us proration, and I think the voters are happy with it.
Okay.
Well, if proration's working, I'm happy for the county, and that's what's important. At first, I didn't think I was in favor of it, and after seeing how well it's working, I think I'm fine with it now.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go to the Board of Supervisors now. And one of the things that happens is some of these questions I've already heard parts of the answers, but I want to give you a chance to either weigh in or just reiterate what you said the first time around. The question for Board of Supervisors candidates are, how will you raise revenue without raising taxes? Now we get to start in the middle this time with Brian.
Well, we do own a restaurant, and if something's broke, the first thing we do is not raise our prices on our menu to try to make up the difference. What we do is we look at how we're spending our money. We see if there's any room in there that we can do something a little bit different, a little bit better. We also look at ways of raising revenue. I'm really encouraged to see what's happening in the middle of Christiansburg with the mall space that's getting redone. Excited to see things coming in over by the mall. I hope our infrastructure can handle it, but I think bringing in new revenue is the way that we do this without having to go crazy and raise a bunch of taxes.
And Sherri, I think you said something about writing grants, but you have something else?
Economic growth, and Brian's correctly right. We need more businesses in here. That means more jobs, and that's a way to grow the economy without raising our taxes. Again, the grant writer, that would help bring money in. Also, again, go back to the Virginia Tech Foundation. You know, we could, I'm optimistic about the talks about that, of how they can help. I know they're one of our biggest economic drivers in the area, but they also can help with on the side of the nonprofit, where their nonprofit is exempt on the commercial side. We need to look at ways to make that a fair, equal playing field for our businesses that come into town. We also, in addition to economic growth, we are the best state in the world, in the U.S. here for business, and so we want to keep keeping our taxes low, and that encourages growth.
Okay. Robbie.
Well, Montgomery County is growing by leaps and bounds, and along with the economic growth, revenue sharing, investigating in that possibility would be one of the ways to raise funds without raising taxes. Grants have a life cycle, so that's not something you can count on really for income. But I mean, I would be open to grants for one-time items or things that we would need in the county.
Darrell?
It's going to be about the same song and dance. Economic growth. You know, it's like Robbie has said, you know, this county's growing in leaps and bounds. I'm sure as I'm sitting here that we've over 100,000 in population at this time. Also, we have already been working with Virginia Tech been at the table and talking with them about what they would be willing to do as far as taxes on businesses on nonprofit properties. Right now, the state law says they only have to pay so much, and that's another thing we're doing. Our legislative updates are coming up, and we have that on the list as one of our priorities to get those laws changed to where we can raise the taxes. Right now, it's 15% is the max you can tax them. So.
Can I?
Sure.
And like I said before about the broadband issue, it's very hard to attract folks to come here if we don't have proper infrastructure for the jobs they need to do. I know when Dish Network decided to move, it was very disappointing. They gave their employees an option of working from home, but the main catalyst to that was to have a proper bandwidth at your home to do that job. So a lot of folks did not be able to keep their jobs because they didn't have just what we should be able to provide for them.
And I'm going to invite your comments because it's really the next question.
What, can I do
It said, how do you think the county should move forward to create broadband access for our rural areas, and should the county allocate money to this effort? So,
I would want to rebuttal about the economic growth and the way to generate revenue. We'd also need to lobby with our state officials to get more state funds. The burden is placed on the county. Lots of times things are mandated that we have to do, and they keep mandating things and cutting their funds. So we need to work with our legislators to make sure the state gives us those funds as well.
okay, I'll count that as a rebut to the other.
Thank you.
I want to rebut too.
You want to rebut
Just
to
another
that?
comment.
Okay.
That's another thing that's on our legislative priorities is trying to get those mandates changed to where they don't mandate us to do stuff that costs money and they don't fund it. The state doesn't fund it, so we're already working on that.
Those unfunded mandates are tough, aren't they?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's try the broadband one because Brian opened it up, and I'll toss it to back to Darrell. How do you think this? What do you think the county should do to move forward? Should they move forward, and should we be allocating money to this effort?
At this time, we are already have a company that's doing surveys of what is the best direction to go and the procedure to get there, to get broadband to every citizen in the county. That's already taken place. The next step is to look at the funding and see where we can get funding, either federally or with the state. It's a very, very ongoing process that we're involved with at this time.
Johnny?
Like Mr. Sheppard said, Montgomery County has already started the process, and I think they're moving as fast as they can with this. So I just don't have really anything to add other than I think they're doing what they can at the time.
Sherri, you want to weigh in on that?
Sure. So the board was presented with the survey information, and there are areas in District B that are not served at all. And so it is challenging when you have areas if you're at Virginia Tech, you have good internet service, and there are areas in Cambria and Franklin Street that are not served. So the priority for the county is to first make sure that we take care of all those that are not served, and then again those that are underserved and not reliable connections. We do that through federal, state. We do that through public and private partnerships. We do that by reaching out and trying to work with the providers. There are 5 service providers here in Montgomery County, and so we need to reach out to them and work and look at all the incentives, because we do need to have broadband for our education, for our students, for our businesses, and for our citizens, but we want to be able to do that fairly throughout the county.
All right.
Can I add something?
Yeah, surely.
This is also related to school issues, because I was out there talking to people. Some parts of my district app is still not fully covered with high-speed internet, and that affects children because many of them do their homework through internet, through Google Classroom, etc. So that is a real issue. So I want to take this opportunity to urge all the Board of Supervisors to please speed up your rollout speed. Thank you.
I didn't get a chance to.
Yeah, sure.
So, I sat through the board meeting the other night and I listened to the recommendations. I do believe that we should appoint a point person to deal with the 5 providers here currently. I'm also open to bringing in other providers. Google Fiber across the country in bigger cities is great. Maybe they want to do a county project. Maybe they want to do a rural broadband project. But we don't know unless we ask the question. I believe in grants. I think grants are great. But if we don't have a point person that's dealing with what we currently got in place, we're going to get the same results.
Can I add? I like Brian's idea, and I like competition. I think without competition, we will never get what we want. Honestly, it's not just for certain parts of my district. I think it's anywhere. People who even willing to pay more for better internet connections, you don't have that option. So I like that idea.
Okay.
I just want to add one thing. Ms. Midkiff spoke about having fiber optic high-speed internet to the students in her district. There are students in my district that don't even have cell phone service. So, I mean, that's how far behind. And I think it speaks to how diverse this county really is and what everybody needs all across the board.
I agree.
I think we got a consensus here that it's a good idea and we need to move forward with all haste.
I just wanted to add too that our students have Chromebooks, and like you said, parts of the county don't have internet ability to use that. Talking with Dr. Meyer about these issues, he even suggested an idea of maybe we could put a tower on a school property and lease it out and create revenue. Anything to do to expand that service.
Okay. All right. I have one now here that is I guess school board, mostly school board, but also Board of Supervisors. And I'll start with school board. The question is, should the school budget be a set percentage of the overall budget? Or, as they do now, should they submit an annual budget request to the Board of Supervisors? And just as a background, there are some counties and municipalities where that in fact happens. I think Salem is an example of
Revenue sharing.
46% or some percentage of whatever the growth is automatically goes. So, let you.
Sure, I'll be glad to answer first. I agree that would be helpful to have that. I believe that actually those conversations are being had already, the concept of revenue sharing. And so that is something that I think we should consider and look into, having a fixed amount as opposed to having to every year. In the past year, Dr. Meyer has to go forward in front of the Board of Supervisors and present a budget and then has to resubmit and has to go back and make changes and cuts. And I think it would be easier for the school system to be able to put together a budget if they know exactly what they're working with, or at least have a clearer idea of what they're working with, as opposed to something that's somewhat nebulous. So I would support that.
Sofia.
I support that as well, but I want to add another thing, which is a rainy day fund. We don't have saving right now. Revenue sharing is good in a good year, but then we don't have the equal amount of the budget if the economy slows down. We don't collect as much revenue, then the revenue sharing part of for the school will be lower too. So I want a rainy day fund to put together with the revenue sharing model. On top of that, I also want to look at our loans to see if we can restructure the loan. One simple way to restructure the loan is basically to look at our interest rate right now. If it's lower than when we borrow those money, and then we can get a new loan and pay off the old loan, then we ended up with a lower interest rate. And that way we can also save some money from interest rate to pay for the school. So there are many ways we can work together and get the school funding more stable, more predictable, and sustainable.
I feel bad that the people on the far end of the table are being left out of this conversation. If you have any thoughts or comments, you'd love to have.
We can speak about it, Helen.
Okay.
Okay. This is a question that I'm not familiar with. Board of Supervisors has to do with the old sheriff's office and the Flieger building are being discussed by our current Board of Supervisors. If you are elected or continue on the board, what would you recommend you do? Remove them and build a new one-story building, or renovate the old? Wow. Without an assessment. Robbie?
Well, I know that they have some ideas that's been presented to the Board of Supervisors of what to do with the buildings. Renovation, tear them down. There's different options. I like the buildings. I like old buildings, and I'd like to see them be renovated and brought up to code and be put to use, have a new home for people that could use it.
We had a presentation last Tuesday night from a company that did an assessment of the building, the Fligger building, and it is in really bad shape to the point that even if we were to renovate it, it would not be structurally sound enough for the magistrate's office, which is what we had been discussing putting in there because of the paperwork. They still do paper, and there's a lot of weight. So it's not, and we don't really have anything else to go in that building that, I mean, I don't know what else you put in it. That being said, we talked about this in a work session back in the spring, and there were some different opinions whether to renovate or to rebuild. And I'll be honest with you, on my side, I was for rebuilding. Now, saving the Fligger building, I'm not totally against. I don't know where I stand on that just right now, but something needs to be done pretty quick. It was made evident that the sheriff's office, the old one, is actually leaking, so it's going to be in bad shape.
Well, I'm all about preserving history, but if we have a broke cooler at the restaurant, we don't keep investing money in it over and over and over. We just buy a new cooler. So, I lean more towards if it's going to cost this much money, not just to restore it, but also for the upkeep as you go along, maybe it's time just to tear it down and build new, and especially if there's not even a plan in place on what you're going to do with the building in the first place. I think from being at the board meeting the other night, what I was hearing is that initially it was a plan to have a bunch of file cabinets and stuff, but they're worried about the floor even being able to hold the file cabinets. So, to me, I think you kind of just spend your money wisely.
So I'm all for saving in historical buildings. However, our responsibility as a supervisor would be how much does it cost, what is the purpose that we're going to use that building, and what's best to serve our citizens. And so when we saw the presentation this week and the cost, if we redo the building and save it for historical purposes, we don't have a real, for what it's available to, we don't have a need for it. What we do have a need is for court services and a magistrate's office. The sheriff's office, the old sheriff's office, is in dire need of repair because of leaking water damage, and so we're going to have to act quickly to renovate that or to build new. So we're going to go with what's the most cost effective. I personally believe that we need to move the magistrate's office there for officer and public safety. And so my idea would be able to move court services and the magistrate's office there together with the jail, with the sheriff's office. It would just be more convenient for that, and I think that's what we would need to do.
Any other thoughts?
I have thoughts.
Yeah.
Coming back to my comprehensive plan for all the school buildings, and that's very close, very true. I think we need a plan simply because it's a better way to use the funding. For example, right now, Bellevue got the funding for $5 million to renovate, and Bellevue is one of the oldest buildings we have. I think it's built in 1953. It's a really old school. So the question is, does it really worth the money to put it to do some more expansion or renovation, or should we simply have to build a new school? Now, if we already decided we put $5 million there, then in 2 years we might need to rebuild it. Is that the best way to use this $5 million? That's my question. So that's why I do want a comprehensive plan for all our buildings.
Okay.
I'll go a little further on that.
Yeah.
Not only do we have an older building like Bellevue, we also have out in Shawsville an old middle school, and we have a high school that is maybe 2/3 full, and a new elementary school also. And I think we need to really think maybe in different ways than we've thought before, how we might want to have our schools set up. Maybe there's other ways to do that instead of improving an older school, figuring out how we might be able to consolidate schools.
Well, thank you. Obviously, the moderators lost control because these people are very slick. They moved from a sheriff's office to a school building. But I have 3 or 4 different notes here, and this is going to be for everybody except the treasurer's office, unless they want to weigh in. And I'm going to read them very quickly. What they have to do with is issues related to accountability and funding of the school system, whether there's sufficient accountability, and one question is, what will you do to be more? What would you do to be more accountable for the school board, for taxpayer dollars, and be transparent? Board of Supervisors, what will you do to make school board be accountable and transparent with taxpayer dollars? Now, the assumption there is that they're not, and they should be. What are you going to do? Well, that's something. Anyway, those were. There's another one there, but it has to do with the issue of transparency and accountability, and are the dollars being spent appropriately? If something needs to be done, what needs to be done? And I'm going to start, I think, with Brian, and I'll kind of hop around on this one.
Okay. Well, I was fortunate enough to go to a joint session of the school board and the board of supervisors a couple months ago. To me, it seemed like there was plenty of transparency. I don't, if there is an issue with that, I'm not aware of it. But I know right now with what's happening with Virginia Tech and the growth, I don't think anybody can plan for anything right now because it just happens so rapidly. So what needs to happen is open, honest conversations between the board of supervisors and the school board to see what the needs are and how quickly they're changing. We're in a very interesting time right now in Montgomery County. And the last thing we need to do is to draw up sides and not want to speak to each other. As a small business person, I deal with people all day, every day, including staff. And trust me, they all got their own opinions, but they're all important. So that's my stand.
Me?
Yeah.
I think when it comes to transparency for the school board, we're talked a lot already tonight about funding in school buildings, but what we haven't discussed is what is being spent in our schools on programs. Sometimes new program ideas come up and money is spent on these programs that really, are they useful programs? Are they something that we really need in our classrooms? Technology is wonderful to have, but do we need to spend as much money as we're spending on technology and focusing so much on having our students on computers as opposed to using other sources? So I think there's a lot of issues within the classroom, not just buildings and the facilities that we have, which are very important, but also what I would like to see what we're really spending our dollars on program related within the schools.
What I want to do is I want to look at the process, decision-making process. I want to see how decisions are made regarding personnel issues, regarding how we spend money, regarding all the decisions, how we make decisions, because the process, if the process is the correct process, I think the decisions we can trust. If there is some flaws in the process, then there might be a high probability that we make the wrong decisions. And a right process to me is that it should be a process with oversight. So whoever making the decisions, is there some oversight? If there's some recourse that being put in place. And so for me, the important thing is actually to look at our decision-making process. When we determine how much we want to spend on this, how much we want to spend on that, I want to see how we got to that point and draw that conclusion.
Can I just add one more thing to that? I'd agree with that in that there are things that are spent, sometimes I believe that programs are implemented without really being open with the people who are going to be using those programs. Often there are programs pushed out into our schools to our teachers without any input from our teachers, without any input from parents and students. And I do think there needs to be more transparency. And I hate the word transparency, but I think there needs to be more open communication and there be more back and forth when decisions are made.
Robbie?
As for the transparency and the school board financing our budget, they are very transparent. I think it's over 260, 80 pages of transparency. As for personnel issues, staffing, we're still 20, like I said earlier, 20 to 25 positions
35.
less.
35.
35 positions less than what we should be. Well, actually, in 2010, when we lost 90 positions, that's 180 hands helping our children. We still haven't even regained those positions, but yet we have more students. So as for that, I think that's pretty self-explanatory right there. Capital improvements, Montgomery County Public Schools should have probably, I want to say, $4 million more for a school system this size to run on to have capital improvements up to date. And we don't get that. So we have to do what we can with what we get. And I'm speaking as an employee of the school system. We have to make hard decisions on when a boiler is going to be fixed, if it can last another year. So there's hard decisions that has to be made that affects our students, whether they have a warm building to come into.
Sure.
Up-to-date plumbing. I mean, it's just capital improvements we just need to increase.
Sure.
Okay, I think the question was on the accountability and transparency between the boards. Is that correct? Okay.
Between the board
Okay.
and the school system.
And the school system. Open communication, respect, and honesty. We are elected officials. We should be trustworthy, and we all should remember that we're working together for the best of Montgomery County. And sometimes I think we forget that. I want to hear the school board tell me their needs and their wants, but I want them to understand that I have limitations. They have to be accountable. If you are going to ask me for something that you need for this, and I allot or approve or vote on that money being spent for that, don't switch the game on me. Unless it's a necessity, and then you need to come and tell me because of an emergency, this is why. This past year, the school received an additional $1.1 million, and that was something that they had not included, as I understand, in the budget. We need to know, as a supervisor, I would want to know that. Sometimes I think that they're scared that they don't want us as a supervisor to know that we would get that extra money, thinking that we would deny them. We're all here to work together, and that's what we need to remember. Open lines of communication and to be accountable and answer questions when we need to.
Can I do a rebuttal?
Let Darrell weigh in, and then we'll come back around. Yeah.
I agree with Ms. Blevins. We do need to be open and honest with each other and respectable. As far as transparency, transparency can be viewed in a couple different ways. In thinking about it, transparency with the school board toward the students and their parents. I know they're very transparent in that effect. When they bring forward a budget proposal for us to look at, yeah, it's how many ever pages deep, but it's pretty vague in some places that I'd like to know exactly where they're spending money. Like Ms. Kass said about technology, what does that mean? Or, what are you doing with that? Because I think sometimes money gets spent that could not necessarily have to be.
I was just going to say checks and balances. And then, of course, when you have members on the school board or supervisors, they need to ask questions. If you have a concern, if you don't know what that means, we need the details. And that's about being transparent. We must be good stewards of our citizens' resources and money.
Can I add something?
Yes.
Transparency, I think there are many ways you can do it. One way is just saying, okay, all the information is on the website, and you can come to the meetings if you have any questions. That's one way. I want something more proactive. I don't want just waiting for people to ask questions. I want to send out information proactively. through newsletters, through social media, through just newspaper, anything, to tell people highlights. Okay, here's what's going on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here is how we make decisions, and here's how we spend money. Those kind of thing, highlights for people, so that people have an idea what is going on. Once they have an idea what's going on, then they might have questions and to come to the meetings or go to the website. But the information has to be pushed to the people rather than just passively waiting for questions. I do want to change that.
All right, I have a,
Can I do my rebuttal?
yes, please.
Thank you. Montgomery County Public Schools has been open, honest, and respectful. And I've been to meetings with both parties, the Board of Supervisors and the school board. They've been open and honest and respectful. And if you have any questions, if any of the Board of Supervisors has any questions when it comes to budget, all they have to do is ask.
Sometimes if you don't know what's going on, you don't know what to ask. Many times you don't know what you don't know. I think that I want to change that.
This question for members of the Board of Supervisors.
Is it your mom?
It says no contact. How come that works? The question is, how will you work with this for Board of Supervisors? How will you work with the school board and town council? You've already talked a bit about working with the school board and that relationship and how important it is. Talk a little bit about relationships that you have, need to have, would hope to develop, improve, maintain, whatever, with town councils. And you're
Okay.
up.
Well, I have experience working as being an engaged citizen. I've worked with the town council of Christiansburg. I attend a lot of their meetings. I also worked with VDOT, come to Board of Supervisors meetings, spoke, school board. So it's about engaging and interacting with our community. I have developed a respectful, strong relationship with these state officials and local officials by being open and honest and having open lines of communication. Each of us has a different perspective, and we need to keep that in mind when we're going through. So I have been effective working with, even on the state level, even with the Secretary of Transportation. I've had great success, and I would just continue to reach out and be engaged and invested in our county. What's good for one board is good for the entire county, and we all need to know that we're working together for the general good of Montgomery County.
Well, I feel like right now we live in a world where everybody expects everybody to be cynical. I don't view it that way. I view that most folks come with great intentions. So what I try to do in my personal life and in my business life is I try to get to know people. And I try to know where they're coming from. And I may not agree with their perspective, and that's okay. They might not agree with mine. But if we have open and honest conversations, I'm not going to view it as they're trying to do something bad. I'm going to view it as they're trying to do something good, and we can start at that point to work both together to do something great.
Darrell.
We work diligently. I'll use that word loosely because trying to keep an open dialogue with the school board and the town councils. We go so far as to hold co-meetings, dinner meetings, at least a couple times a year when time allows with the school board. And we have done that with the town of Blacksburg in the past. So I think just keeping the communication lines open and I carry a county phone. They're free to call me anytime. And I feel like I can call them. I mean, I think we have a pretty good relationship as it is.
Communication is the key. Communicating with both parties or the town, county, schools, communication is definitely the key. If you have an issue or disagreement, communicate, work together to come to a conclusion or solution that everyone is agreeable upon.
Good. This question is initially for school board candidates, but then actually for the entire group. And I'll start with the school board candidates. What help might the school board provide to increase teachers' acceptance of diversity in the classroom? And then the follow-up question really speaks to diversity in the community, but let's take that first part of it, and then I'll come back with the second part. What help might the school board do to provide or to help teachers become more accepting of diversity in the classroom? Makes the assumption that they're not accepting, but
Who's first?
Susan.
Oh, I'm first again. Okay. Well, to me, diversity is not only race-related. We're talking about socioeconomic status. We're talking about gender, sexual orientation, able-bodiedness. There's a lot of diversity, and I don't think you realize the diversity we have out in our school system until you actually work out there and see what a diverse population of students we have. I do think that teachers do work very hard to appreciate that diversity and to work with students. Can we do more? Definitely. Could there be more relatable training? One of the problems with teaching and doing training for teachers is making sure that it's not training that's not going to be used, that's relevant training. And so if we're going to train our teachers on how to be appreciative of diversity in the classroom, it needs to be a very useful training that's going to not encompass just teachers, but students, parents, and people in the community. We need to make sure that everyone is involved in that type of a training.
Sofia.
There has been some effort by some parents and to try to bring in different celebrations from different countries and cultures, etc., to the schools. Actually, it's very well received. The kids like that. So I would want the school board to continue these kind of efforts, and not just coming from the parents, but also proactively asking around and contact the local different ethnic groups and to ask them, what are the celebrations you have, and can you help the school to do something? Because, like I said, it's well received, and so it is an activity that both can increase the awareness and better understanding of the school, of the student population, but also kids actually enjoy. So I think that's one thing I do want to do more. I want to see more.
Can I add to that? Celebrations are terrific, and they do that in the schools right now. We see that all the time in different classrooms, celebrating the diversity. But I think it's important that we look at a teaching curriculum that opens students up to diversity. We don't even teach world geography or world history in our schools until students are in high school. They touch upon it in elementary school. Nothing's done in middle school. We need to have a curriculum that really opens our students up to diversity also, and opens them up to understanding the differences in people. But I think that a lot of it is we need to really focus curriculum too. Celebrations are great, but I think it needs to be more hands-on practice.
I want to add on one more thing. In terms of training, I think there are trainings for that part. But the training probably shouldn't be just about talking about it, but also, for example, assign teachers for a specific country to work on. So they do some research about that particular country that are represented by our students. And so everybody assigned to a country, and so they do some research, and then they can have better understanding about that country. I think by the end of the training, people can present it with a presentation. Okay, this is the country that I've been given to represent, to do research, and then here's the result.
Can I remark one more time? I think teachers have a lot to do, and I think teachers are very aware of different cultures and different curriculum. I think that what we need to do is really talk about really hardcore diversity issues. And we're not just talking about race issues here. We're talking about children who are confused about their sexual orientation. We're talking about socioeconomic status. We have students we have the haves and the have-beens, and we need to learn how to really make those people all work together and appreciate each other. That's what's really important.
I think it sounds to me like we already have a problem that we don't recognize, that we think we know enough about our diversities already. I think that we should start change right now. We don't know enough about other countries. We really don't know. For example, you ask people how many ethnicities are living in China. I don't think people know there are actually more than 50. I think most people assuming all the Chinese are just one kind, but there are actually 50 minorities in China, for example. So we should start change our attitude towards the diversity. Do not make assumptions thinking that we already know enough.
Okay, and we'll finish that discussion in the hallway afterwards, okay? This is a question for all candidates, and it's written about, the question has to do with an inclusive community as a top priority. How will you increase outreach to community members so that more people have a voice in local government practices? I want to modify that in a way that says, talk a little bit about your views about how to involve the public, whether advisory committee or whatever processes you use, again in the treasurer's office to solicit input into how you do your business, or how the office operates, or how the functions operate. And let's see. Brian's always smiling, so I'll take him.
Repeat the question again.
The question is, what's your notion about how, in your case, the Board of Supervisors ought to engage others, solicit input, and as a part of that, making sure that the people or that the group that they're soliciting input represents diversity, that it's a diverse group?
Sure. Well, we have a pretty decent sized staff, and they're all different people. They're younger people, and the one thing I have learned that they all want to be a part of something. But if you don't ask the question or you don't give them the information, they don't know to be a part of it. So I would love to see the county, since every one of us has a smartphone either in our purse or our pocket tonight, I would like to see us develop an app that simply people can go to and see what's needed, see what jobs are available, see what programs are being started for the community. Because if we don't have the power of the knowledge at our hand, especially with this new generation, which, trust me, getting cell phones out of my employees' hands is a very hard thing to do. That's the way it's more open, honest conversation, and power is knowledge. Knowledge is power.
Okay, Darrell, what kinds of things are you doing, or you think the Board of Supervisors might be doing to engage more people and make sure it's a diverse?
We went down the road of trying to do community meetings, going out into the community and holding our board meetings, or some version of a board meeting last year before last. I think the one we did at Blacksburg High School, and you were there, I think maybe we had a dozen people.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a subject matter, they don't really want to come and get involved, doesn't seem like. Now when we had one in Shawsville, that meeting we actually had a purpose, was for the park that we wanted to put in, and we wanted public input for that park. And we had, I don't know, probably 50 or 75, maybe 100 people at that meeting. So we had a pretty good turnout. And the same way in Reiner. But without some kind of motivation, it's just hard to get people out. It really is.
So it's about personal relationships, and if they're not going to come to you, you go to them. It's about being able to be accessible and going to different community events where you put yourself out there to meet people with different backgrounds and different perspectives. And it's about being welcoming, being respectful, and listening to their interests. Sometimes people are afraid to speak up. They might want to tell you about a problem, but they may not want to, publicly tell you about a problem, or they may be, might not be something that they even know part of the government. What does that do? What does that board do? So we need to be accessible out to them. I know that the county does run public ads when they want to asking for people to work on commissions and advisory boards, but we need to be accessible and reach out to them. We're here to serve the people and listen to everyone's voice, and they should all have a participation in government. Every voice should be heard.
Yeah, Robbie?
Well, personally, I have had a coffee and conversation once a month since August, and invited people from our community. District E is a widely diverse community. We have farmers, we have professors, we have middle class, blue collar employees. So we are a very widely diverse community. I've invited people to come and talk to me and ask questions. I've had some hard questions asked of me. Some people have come and didn't agree with everything I had to say, but we came to a resolution and we understood each other. We agreed to disagree.
I'd like to add too that I'd like to see in the government classes in the high schools and even the colleges for us to reach out and say, how can you be a part of your government? Your voice needs to be heard. And that's the way to reach people, is to make sure when they're getting ready to make sure they're registered to vote when they're 18, help them understand how important their voice and what part they can play in their government.
Yeah.
I do wish people would get more involved. I didn't realize until I got on the board how many people don't even know what the board does. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Do we get that question?
I want to go to Treasurer's office first. Yeah.
Well, I think the biggest factor is getting out and meeting people. We've got a large group of people in Montgomery County that a lot of people probably never even talk to. I try to go to as many community events as I can. And it's amazing what you can learn if you just go to those events and introduce yourself and listen to some of these people talk. I mean, it's just amazing how much we really don't know about other cultures. Like for me, that grew up in Montgomery County, the Blacksburg area has such a diverse culture. You can be over there 365 days a year and still be learning about different cultures. Sometimes, though, and nobody probably likes to do this, but sometimes you have to set up like a little group of people and meet. I mean, people don't like to meet sometimes, but that's how you really learn, because people will talk in these groups and they'll tell you about their culture or where they grew up or what kind of food they eat or why they wear certain types of clothes, which a lot of us have no idea why they might wear a certain color. There's just so much to learn in our county that if you don't get out and see people, you're falling way behind on the culture part of it.
Yeah. Helen?
In our office, the people that work at the front counter are usually the ones that get the feedback from the customers when they come in. For the most part, it's very positive. Sometimes there are suggestions on things that we can do differently or things we can do better, and I'm always open to listen to those. And anytime anyone wants to speak with me about a suggestion or a concern, I'm there to listen to them and see what I can do to help them or to make things better or to implement some things that they would like to see happen. And also we do a customer satisfaction survey in the office that people give input, and I review those. And so I think we're being very proactive in keeping in tune with the voters and the taxpayers and what they would like to see done for the office or something that they would like to see changed.
Susan?
I agree with Tay. We have a very diverse culture here in Montgomery County, and I think one of the things I found being a teacher is that, and being a parent, I have met a lot of people along the way, and I think one of the things that is very important is getting out. What Sherri said is actually getting out to the people. They're not going to come to you. You need to get out there, and you have to be somebody they're comfortable with, somebody they feel that they can have a conversation with. I've talked to lots of people over the last several months, teachers, parents, students. I've had students email me with questions because they want to have input in what's going on. They ask me, who's my board member? I don't even know anything about the school board. And I think it's important that we get out there and talk to everyone in our community. And there's people in our community who can't get out. You know, we have a lot of people who of a lower socioeconomic status who cannot get to meetings or don't have that availability. We need to reach out to those people and get them involved. Those are the parents and the students that we really need to get involved. There's a lot of people who take the time to get out there, but we want to reach those that don't have access.
Sofia?
I think you listen, pay attention, and then respond. People's concern, you need to listen and then pay attention to what they're really saying. and respond with the concerns and issues, give them a solution or some kind of a help. Otherwise, if you, many times I encounter parents who are telling me this issue or that issue, and then I said, why don't you talk to this and that school board member or board of supervisors? They would say, their answer would be, yeah, I did last time, I never heard anything back. And then they got discouraged, then they never come back and reach out to you again. So I think for everybody here, we just need to listen carefully what people's concerns are. Find some help or direct them into somebody else that can help them if you can't, and truly give them an answer and even follow up sometimes with them to see if that problem solved.
Yeah, it occurs to me that perhaps candidates do the best job of reaching out and learning more about the people that they're going to serve than when they end up being a part of a bureaucratic structure. That it's, I think everybody agrees, you got to be proactive and you've got to be invitational. If you're talking about diversity, you have to make sure that people who don't have a voice get a voice. Anyway, we're about ready to wrap this up. You're all gonna have a chance to do 2 minutes here. I just want to share with you a couple of the questions I didn't get to. They were good questions, but kind of ran out of time. What are you going to do for the environment from the school perspective? I don't know whether that's teaching about it or
Good example. I think I'm the most environmental friendly person on this. I'm using reusable bottles.
They're very specific question about your views on the $7 million parks proposed for Ryder and Shawsville, and I suspect your answers are we think they're wonderful ideas. If we got the money, we'd love to do it. Plans for growing use of technology, and you've touched on that a lot tonight about the problems associated with the broadband not being available, and you can have technology, but if you can't make it work, ask me. It's not helpful. And what would it take to fully fund schools? We could have a nice discussion about what fully funding means. So with that, we're going to call an end to the question and answer session. I'm going to start down at this end and ask each of you to take as much of 2 minutes as you would like, and then we'll close that down after that. So Taylor, you get the short stick.
Well, first of all, thank you all for coming tonight. It's good to see you out in the audience. One of the things I would like to do, and Helen might have already started working on this, I don't know, is if elected, try to get maybe an eighth. I'd like to get an eighth, maybe, or a quarter more percentage on our money. Look back at the years 2017 and 2018, and if we got 1/8% more, it's almost $34,000 more, which doesn't seem like a lot, but if you multiply that over 10 years, that starts adding up. If we were to get 1/4% more on the money, it would be approximately $68,000 a year, which would help fund Hank Parton and the Sheriff's Department, the schools, the Board of Supervisors, debt reduction, and other related items. I think it's important that we take care of the county's money as best we can. Like I've said before, I grew up in Montgomery County. I live here. I pay my taxes here. My wife is a teacher here. My mom was a teacher here. My brother was a teacher. I tell people I'm bound to be educated somehow, sometime. With that, I have 30 seconds left. We have a great county here, and Helen, I'm sure, has done a good job. I appreciate her sitting here and being nice to me. thank all of you all for coming tonight, too. That's it.
I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the NAACP for sponsoring this forum, and I'd like to thank each of you in the audience for attending. I began my career in the Treasurer's Office in 1984 when Ellis Meredith was Treasurer. Over the years, I have worked with every area of the office, including 15 years as the Chief Deputy. In January, when Richard Shelton retired, he appointed me as Treasurer and wrote a letter of endorsement for the job. As Treasurer, I have implemented additional collection initiatives. In doing so, from February when I took office to September, which is a span of 9 months, we have collected $5 million in delinquent tax, penalty, and interest, which is $1.7 million more than was collected last year for the same time period. Real estate and personal property taxes fund over half of the county's budget, and I am committed to the collection of taxes to help fund the county's needs and offset a tax increase. I will continue to work out payment plans for people that have physical or financial hardships, but for those who choose not to pay their taxes, that is not going to be an option. I will work with finance and the PSA in reviewing the banking services and the best investment options for the county, and that is a joint effort between the Treasurer's Office and the finance and the PSA. I come to work every day to do my best, and I will be respectful and fair to everyone. Your concerns are my concerns, so I welcome you to stop by or call me at any time. If elected, I will be a treasurer that is in the office, working alongside a team of great employees, the same that I have done for the past 35 years. And a side note, if I'm elected, I will be the first female treasurer in Montgomery County in 48 years. I respectfully ask for your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
I also would like to thank the League of Women Voters and the NAACP for their having this forum this evening. When I switched careers and became a teacher, I was the mother of a 9- and a 7-year-old at Kipps Elementary, and my previous work experience consisted of 14 years as a human resources manager, as well as some retail and fast food things when I was younger. No experience I had as a mom or an HR could ever prepare me for teaching. I've always appreciated teachers, but I never understood the hard work, dedication, patience, and compassion it would take to spend almost 6 hours a day surrounded by energetic bundles of hormonal sixth graders, and then another 4 hours a day of my own time planning, grading, meeting with parents, directing the drama club, attending professional development, and the other array of responsibilities that are given to teachers. It's the hardest job I've ever had, but it's also the most rewarding. Teaching opens your eyes to the diversity of our county's population, which we've talked about, to the wide socioeconomic gaps, as well as the varying lifestyles, religious beliefs, cultures, academic and emotional needs of our students. It's this experience that I think is needed on our school board, the experience of having lived in that environment. And the fact that tonight we haven't discussed these issues. We haven't talked about really teachers. We haven't talked about student issues. We've talked a lot about funding and the facilities, and I totally think that's important. And obviously funding is important for us to get good teachers, but there are concerns in the schools. Our teachers are burned out. Our teachers are leaving. And the teachers are the key to getting your students educated. That's what parents, they want good teachers. Well, if you want good teachers, we need to really work on supporting our teachers and supporting our students. Our students have an array of issues that they have to deal with now in our new world of technology and social media, and we need to focus on those issues also. So I hope that I become one of the first MCPS teachers on the school board in a very long time, and I hope you will support me on November 5th.
Thank you.
I think we all agree the challenges we're facing in this community in terms of the fundings and etc. Teachers need to be better paid, and employees need to be better paid, and the old buildings need to be taken care of. So down to it, the question is, who can deliver? I used to work in many places. When I was working for Ericsson, I was working for a company that for account. that within a year, that account become the top account for the company. When I was working for IBM, I was a part of the team that signed the biggest contract at the time with Sprint PCS. It was a $1 billion contract for 10 years. When I've been also served many years on the Gifted Advisory Committee, and one of which I served as a co-president. During that year, we had open house. I sent out newsletters and also invited guest speakers, which are all very well received. When I was brought in to the Blacksburg Chinese School, I started a sponsorship program. Single-handedly brought in thousands of dollars of funding for the school, which is significant within one semester. So we are currently having a trade war with China to compete with China. As a Chinese American, I can tell you the way to compete with China is to compete in education. And the way to do that is to put passionate, capable people into our school system, into our educational system. I have 2 kids in our system, in the Montgomery County public schools. So I have the motivation, I have the passion, and I have record of showing wherever I go, I deliver and I perform. So vote for me, Sofia, Zhang, Midkiff. Put me on the school board. I will deliver, I will perform, which I believe is the reason both Connie Froggatt and Chris Hurst convinced me to run. So vote for Sofia with an F for District F. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and the NAACP for hosting the event tonight, and I'd like to thank all my friends and particularly my family for showing up and supporting me. Thank you guys for coming as citizens. I'm a small business owner operating New River Valley Driving School here in Christiansburg for the last 20 years. I'm married to a Virginia State Trooper, my trophy husband, Buck. And we have 2, you're supposed to laugh, that's funny. And we have 2 children, Zachary, who's a nursing student in RCC, and Kayla, who's a senior at Christiansburg High School. I'm a traffic safety instructor who's dedicated to promoting driver safety, especially with our youth. I'm a recipient of the Governor's Transportation Safety Award for my work. My family and I are very active with our church, our schools, and our community. I serve on the state advisory board for Yovaso. I'm a member of the Lions Club, American Businesswomen Association, Virginia chapter of Lung Transplant, and active with Help Save the Next Girl. As a citizen, I've been engaged and believe that I've made a positive impact on our community. By attending board and town meetings, I've stayed informed and have developed a respectful, strong relationship with both local and state officials. Several years ago, when the safety of Falling Branch Elementary School was at risk, due to trespassers from the park and ride entering the school, I advocated to remove the park and ride. It took 2 years working with parents, teachers, local and state officials, and VDOT to remove that threat. It took dedication, it took commitment, but I dedicated and made sure that our schools were safe. I was able to bring this county together, and with full support, the park and ride was relocated. With the increased population of Montgomery County and all the accidents on Interstate 81, I advocated the need to establish a state police office here in Montgomery County. With the tragic events over the last years that we've had, our officers needed to have the manpower, resources, and equipment to quickly respond, protect, and best serve our county. Last year, we had the grand opening of the Area 49 State Police here in Christiansburg. That was the first new area office to be established within the last 20 years for the state police. My desire is to serve. I want the best for Christiansburg and Montgomery County, for my family and for yours. As a supervisor, I would serve with the same commitment and dedication, and I ask for your support on November 5th.
Well, first of all, thanks to the League of Women Voters and the NAACP for having us tonight. Thank you all for coming. I grew up on a farm in Foster Falls, Virginia. We didn't have much growing up. So I understand how important people's livelihoods are to them. If I'm elected, I'm going to take that into consideration on every vote I make. I've also been in sales for 13 years, and when you're in sales, the one thing you get used to hearing is no. No, no, no. So I learned over a period of time that no just means not right now. So if I'm elected, I'm going to ask the hard questions. I'm going to ask for our fair share from Montgomery County, and I'll ask it again and again and again until the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I'm ready to get to work for you. I hope on November 5th you'll come out. I hope you'll tell your friends. And thank you very much.
Well, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for inviting us and having this forum. Also, I want to thank the NAACP. I want to thank everyone that's here. And, well, I am a mother of 4 grown children, and I'm also a nana to 2 granddaughters. My husband, who is in the audience, I'm glad he's here. He didn't have to shave, so that's a good thing. I am a volunteer. I have volunteered with my children's schools and when they were in school. I'm also active in our church here in Christiansburg. I am a past president of the Montgomery County Education Association and past vice president of Montgomery County Education Association. Also, I currently serve as a building rep for Montgomery County Education Association. I am on the executive board for the Virginia Education Association, and also on the National Education Association level. I graduated in 2018 from an education support professional group called Leaders for Tomorrow. I'm also a trainer of trainers for the National Education Association, and I do workshops all over the country for them in electing your employer. It informs employees. Every decision is made by their elected officials. I really appreciate your time tonight. I want to thank all of you for considering me and asking for your vote on November 5th. And I just really want to thank you again. Have a wonderful evening.
First, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for having this, and the NAACP for supporting it. I grew up in Price's Fork. I used to ride my bike on Price's Fork Road back before it turned to a raceway. I wouldn't dare do that today. I've lived there my whole life. I'm second generation. My daughter's third generation going to Price's Fork Elementary. I started work in 1984 at Virginia Tech physical plant. I had to retire I had surgery and had to retire from the police department in 2012 as a patrol sergeant. While I've been on the board, we've had many accomplishments. I've got 4 full pages of accomplishments, things that we've done since I've been on the board. I've already mentioned a couple of those. One of the big ones, I think, was the sale of the old Blacksburg Middle School and the old Blacksburg High School sites. The schools needed that money to put toward their capital projects, and almost 2 decades of supervisors before me, couldn't seem to get that done. So I'm very proud of that, to be a part of that. Like I said before, we provided funding for Montgomery County Public Schools that has increased 17% in the last 4 years. Another one that I'm very proud of is I spearheaded the Montgomery County's participation in the New River Community College's ACE program. That is Access to Community College education program. It's a debt-free pathway for job trainings programs and post-high school education for county residents. So I'm very proud of that. I wanted to speak to the Reiner Park. We do need those parks. They're part of our economic development. It draws people to come to this county and businesses because they can see that we do that for our community. I appreciate your vote on November the 5th.
Well, thank you all. Let me first apologize for my technophobia. I want to also thank my colleagues from the League of Women Voters and the NAACP for all of their good work and service this evening. I want to thank all of you in the audience for coming. It's an important show of concern for your community and being able to observe a group of local politicians being civil and being positive and being supportive of the institutions and the programs and the community they hope to serve. I want to thank the 8 candidates for being here, and especially for your willingness to put yourself forward in service to the community and the citizens of this county. And I think we all owe them a round of applause. And with that, thank you very much for coming. You all may head toward the exits.
Head to the bathroom.